You're listening to Can I Get a Retake, where education meets innovation.
Our guest today is Elven Riley, a professor of finance in the Seton Hall University's Stillman School of Business. He has over 55 years of experience in technology, finance, and now academia. He's also the author of Unavoidable Money Decisions, a digital textbook published by Great River Learning.
For listeners who don't know you yet, can you give us the arc? So, how does someone who goes from researching at the University of Illinois in the early 70s to building trade floors on Wall Street, then to teaching thousands of students at Seton Hall? How does that happen?
Uh, as I often refer to it, it's a drunkard's walk. There is no such thing as career planning, and if you start off in an industry and a technology in its infancy, anything can happen, and it's just which door do you want to go through? So I was very blessed with a lot of opportunities to go through all sorts of odd opportunities. But I started with as an undergraduate, almost flunking out of Ohio University. And the only course that I did well in was a computer course, which was a take-home, just like my course is built around a take-home. You kind of do self-paced thing. And at the end of the year, I came to the conclusion that I would stay with computers because I got a B in that course or C plus, and I did not do well in anything else. And so I took some computer courses, and that led to my junior year. I was asked by the head of the program to teach some courses that because he had mono, and he said, "Could you finish my courses?" I said, "I don't have a degree." He says, "Yeah, I know." But we're out in Ohio University in the middle of nowhere, and there was nobody to be had to find to do this. And he said, "You've taken all these courses and several others. You should be fine." I said, "Well, I'd love to do it, but I'm working three part-time jobs. I can't possibly do this, and squeeze this into my schedule." And he said, "Oh, no, no, we'll pay you." My ears perked up, and I said, "That sounds like a good idea." And he said, "We'll hire you as an adjunct. Don't worry about the degree, etc. I'll make them take you. This, like, we need this to finish this for the program for these students who are halfway through the term." And I said, "Okay." And I did quite well. They asked me to continue to teach as an adjunct in the computer program. I taught some advanced computer science courses and some introductory courses. Um, I graduated amazingly because there wasn't a degree back then for computers, and but they invented one along the lines of a general study intensive customized program my senior year. Uh, my wife, first wife, was offered a master's full ride at the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana, and I said, "Okay." I can get a job someplace. And off I went to the University of Illinois. The CS department wanted me to go into the PhD program, but would not pay me to do that. I thought paying the rent was a higher priority. So I went to work for a DARPA research labs, coordinated science lab, and was basically the head of IT support for the labs. And after a year, I decided that it was probably wise for me to move someplace else where I could make some more money to stay ahead of this inflation thing. And so I said one coast or the other, and we went to Manhattan, moved in, obviously. Masters in Fine Arts, that would be a place to go. And I went to work for some computer vendors. And the computer vendors hired me because I was at that time just a ridiculous nerd. I knew like 40 computer languages, the internals of several operating systems. And so they hired me, and I worked in the Manhattan office of two vendors. I did sales support to help them call on Fortune 50 companies. So the 50 largest companies in the United States have headquarters in Manhattan, a number of them, a lot of them. And so they would buy tons and, truckloads of computers to go install or wherever their branches were around the country or manufacturing sites or whatever. And I would go along on the sales calls and talk to their techies to answer all their techie questions. And then I decided after several years I was going to try sales myself and get that skill. And they assigned me to the financial industry because the company I was working for had not penetrated it that well. And they had a couple of salespeople working on that area, but it was not going well. But they were doing well in other areas, but not this particular one. And so I said, they signed that, a new kid on the block, and they said, no, you can go sell here. Don't hurt anybody. Yes. You can't do any damage here. And off I went. And in the next, so 6 months into the year, I finished the year going on the pro club trip to some nice location because I sold over $1 million worth of equipment. I sold over a couple of million in the next year, and the third year, 6 months in, I sold another couple $1 million worth of equipment. And then I left. And I left because I was really good at this and I was making a ton of money, which was very nice, but it is not my cup of tea. I can sell. I don't like selling. I, I wanted to go grab a screwdriver and start, or some coding sheet and start programming. Like I wanted to do things, It's like this talking about it and letting somebody else screw it up was just not help. I was not happy with that. So push comes to shove, and Salomon Brothers, which is if you ever read the book Liar's Poker, I was there with him and others that at the time. So I went to work for Salomon Brothers, which got me, and then I learned a lot about finance, not having taken any business courses, and I enjoyed the heck out of it. Um, they had a bunch of money. They had really big problems, and the industry had not applied much technology. And there was all this new stuff coming along. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time to experience that. And I did that for several years. I built trading floors. I merged investment banks. So, um, and then one day, uh, somebody I knew in the industry called me up and asked me if I would help Seton Hall build a trading room, like a little trading floor. And I said, well, that seems like a ridiculous idea, but sure. And oddly, my educational background of working way back at Ohio University, working for the University of Illinois as a non-teaching faculty researcher, uh, helped me know how to speak to them as opposed to just being a nerd or an investment banker. I also had the third leg of the stool, which was how education works, higher education in particular. So I helped them, and at the end of it, the dean, uh, Karen Boroff, who actually later became the provost, was the dean of the business school, and she said she she asked for a meeting. I was still working in the city at the time, so I met with her, and she said, "I want to hire you. Is there anything you'd want to teach?" And I said, "Well, I wouldn't mind teaching. I do enjoy teaching a back office class when you pick up your phone after the trade is what the typical term is, but you pick up your phone, you call your broker and say, buy me 100 shares of Microsoft. And the broker says, no problem. You hang up. And sometime later, you get a statement that says you own 100 shares of Microsoft and what that's worth. I would be interested in teaching a course in that. She said, well, here's what I need. We built a trading room. My faculty never worked on Wall Street, and they really don't know what that room is about. And I have a lot of, like the Board of Regents had a number of people from the street that I actually knew. That was one of the people that introduced me into them. And they also had a number of alumni that worked in insurance or banking or brokerage. And she said, I need somebody to translate between the academics and the professionals because they're not. Oddly enough, there's a real gap in the translation and the experience base where the academics could not walk onto a trading floor and understand what the hell was going on, and the trading floor people couldn't walk into an academic classroom or the trading room where learning was supposed to occur and have anything happen. So that
You bridge the
led to
gap.
me hanging out at Seton Hall for about 20 some years while I continued to work on the street. And I went to an alumni event because the dean insisted at the time. And there was a student who I had taught who had graduated a couple of years earlier that went to work on Wall Street, had done very well. Was I had heard that he'd gotten promoted. And I said, "Hey, John, how are you?" He says, "I'm going great. I got this promotion." I said, "I heard all about it. Congratulations. You have a team of people that work for you. You're doing this wealth management thing." And yes, 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 yes. And I can't remember what firm it was. It was a household name investment bank. And I said, "So how's it living in the city? I heard you had a really nice place in the city." He says, "Oh, no, I don't. I moved it back in with my parents." What? What is that? And he said, "No, I kind of screwed up and and I said, tell me, what, do you mind sharing?" He said, "No, no, no." So I got these big bonuses, two of them in a year to year, 2 years in a row. And I didn't realize they didn't take out the taxes. So when I did my taxes the first year, I didn't calculate it right. And then so the second year, I didn't calculate it right again, but then they caught me and then they said, "Oh, by the way, your back taxes are here." And so they came up with this big bill. And I had been living in a very nice place in Manhattan, apartment in Manhattan, and the rent was very high. And no, I didn't have any roommates to sharing the rent or anything. And so I couldn't really round that corner. And yes, I did buy that Mercedes coupe, but I didn't realize how much it would cost to garage it in Manhattan. So he said it all came crashing down on me, and I almost went bankrupt, which I didn't think was a good idea for my career. So I moved back in with my parents. I'm just about squared up again, and I apologized. I said the university failed you. That was a mistake. We should be teaching you some basic. I mean, hell, you're managing wealthy people's money, and you messed up yourself with just silly mistakes. And that I went back to the chair of the department at the time, Tony Levisic, a great guy. And he said, "Yeah, go, nobody's going to like you doing this, but do it." I agree with you. And that's where the course came from. That's where I soaked up all of this information in terms of being able to speak across various borders on the technology, the finance, and the university student relationships that make this text and the course that kind of goes along with it impactful. The students sign up for it. They like it. It's a general elective. So I think I mentioned too that it started off when I started with it, it was face to face and I scheduled it for 8:30 Monday morning. Face to face required attendance. So the people that were in the room really wanted to be in the room. And indeed, I got like 20 students the first time I offered it. They asked great questions. They helped me clean up the um, outline of the course a bit. But the topics pretty much stayed the same. It's focused on them. It's not about me and what I think is important. It's the things that are unavoidable money decisions that happen in the 18 months after graduation if they haven't already hit these. So that's all it is. It's driver's ed with money. It's high school driver's ed with money. It's not about teaching them behavioral finance on decision making, though that is baked into the sauce. It's not about compound interest rate formulas, though I do point out where to go on the web to get those widgets. There's just it's basic, practical how to fill out your income tax because you've probably never done that. So, and a number of other it's a surprising number of things that people are exposed to right away, and they often are ill prepared and often make a mistake. And I'm not smarter about this. I just am very old and have seen or made all of these mistakes myself. So all I do is talk about here's the decision, here, frame the decision, and here's the options. And oh, by the way, those two over there, those are bad ideas. Don't do those. And these, you can do this depending on your style and how you want to live. So no judge.
Speaking of things that they shouldn't do or should avoid,
Yes.
what's one decision when it comes to taxes, insurance, debt, etc., that you've seen trip up graduates the most?
Basically, they don't know. And I don't mean they don't know what a loan is. They do not know how much they are in debt. They do not know how much they will be in debt the day they graduate. I think a lot of the older boomer, okay, boomer generation think that, well, we know this, everybody knows this. And it's like, no, nobody knows. They don't- that why? And parents are much more supportive, uh, depending on the school. And you know what socioeconomic structure you've come from. You can uh, be shielded and be as ignorant as someone who is has comes from a family that never had to deal with these because they never had that much money. So the ignorance comes from being coddled or protected or taken care of, as well as neglected, figure this out yourself and don't bother me. I don't know. So there's a lot of ignorance to go around. And so it's like, so then where do you start? Because at that point, the wall is looking pretty tall and pretty unassailable. And so figuring out how to empower them, to give them agency. And I would say the number one thing that I try to do in terms of their decision making and their cognitive abilities is to recognize that they are making decisions even when it's a default decision of I'm going to ignore this. So that sense of agency, of ownership, of I can do this, I can figure this out, and maybe it'll be a good answer, maybe it won't, but where the heck do I start?
You've noticed that you have more than 50 different majors represented with students who are taking your course. What do you think that says about how current students learn and what their demand is to learn this information?
So I have 200 students, 194 this semester, taking this course right now. Um, the 50 majors is over the years I've looked and figured out what majors are winding up. Do I have arts and sciences students making it to the business school to take this course? Because my course is listed in the business school in the finance department. So I have been very conscious of making this material as accessible as possible, regardless of their background. I teach it in the summer to a program that we have for first-time college. And so their first time that anyone in their family has been to college, we offer this. This course is offered as a kind of a prep thing for them to make it through the 4 years and manage the block and tackle of their money. And they now have the data to show that this my course and a communications course on how to interact and communicate your thoughts with others. Um, we have graduated a couple of cohorts all the way through the 4 years with this program, and they have a better retention as a cohort than the average student, even though they come from a challenged background. And so not only is the retention better, but the graduation rate is better than the average student. So we've taken them from the back of the pack to above average as a pack. So I think that this information needs to be shared and makes a difference in silly things like graduating because their bills didn't eat them alive. They're working part-time jobs, et cetera, and paying rent, and they're in the world and they're in the capitalistic society trying to make their money work. And any hints that you can provide along those lines actually improves the graduation rate. It's like, duh. Let's actually recognize that they don't just appear magically in the classroom to learn with us and then disappear into thin air and who knows or cares what they do. To get them to keep on coming back and be successful at just getting through college needs some acumen when it comes to handling money. So, um, so it was important to me to have a number of majors, which I did get. I did a lot of, I, I, it, I don't do this for the money, obviously, right? So I do this because I'm passionate about um, making a difference in the world with how to improve the outcomes of our younger adults. And I don't think that we do enough about that. And this is my way of trying to promote that.
To your knowledge, are there other business schools in the area or even in across the country that are offering courses like this?
They're one-offs. They're not systematic.
Hmm.
They are usually, so I went to, and I think this is becoming more popular as a concept anyhow, is that, okay, so let's say that you are a uh, um, 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 science major and you're headed into research. That's where you want to go. You want to do some uh, healthcare research and get grants, work on figuring out the next thing, how people can uh, do something better, healthier, live healthier. Turns out you need to manage a budget, not just your personal budget. You have to manage a budget that has to do with the lab that you've been assigned to work in, the grant that you are not only applying for, but the reporting of the progress in the grant and how you've spent the money and what you've gotten for the money is these are things that occur for your professional experience as well as your personal experience. So I went to a number of schools, both at Seton Hall and other places, and tried to talk them into like, let's do a modified version of this course. Like mine is all about your personal, like bolt on 3 lectures on how to manage the early graduation from your nursing program. You're going to graduate with this kind of debt. You're going to earn this kind of money. You're going to work these kind of hours. You're going to need these kinds of living things for these kinds of hospital jobs or these kind of other jobs. Like kind of plug those together a bit and then make it more focused on a a professional track because you need to know both sides of that. So I've tried to sell that a couple of times. I have not gotten any bidders yet, but I see more movement in that direction. I think people are now starting to. So, but it's early days. Nobody's going to make full professor based on doing this kind of work. So, I recognize that uh, this does not easily fit into the paradigm of a business model for a university, which is trying to increase enrollment regardless of the amount of debt that a student might have to take to finish the program. So
I can see the conflict there.
good.
So I got kind of a two-part question for you. How
Sure.
has your advice to students changed over the past decades? And what is a piece of crucial advice that students in college right now need to hear?
Well, just like I said that their grandparents, like me, I'm 75, by the way. I think that their lives and their personal money situations are more fragile than ours were. And that's not that it just costs more. I think there's uh, far more active campaigns to part them and their money. That did not, we didn't have that kind of aggressive behavior to go separate the fool and the money. You kind of had to stumble bumble into that on your own. Today, regardless of the media, the adverts, the sidebars, the voiceovers, the pauses, the the mailing, the text messages that bombard your inbox, I mean, all of it is trying to motivate you to part with your money. And not always in a good way. So that's changed a lot. We used to have newspapers. They do not. So that's changed. And so part of the course tries to separate myth. I try to present it as myth. Um, I am sarcastic. They seem to like their sarcasm is the, well, you don't really believe that, do you? I mean, come on. I mean, like, how could that possibly make any sense? So that approach seems to uh, allow them to decide for themselves, which again, it goes back to agency. I want to instill agency in their feeling that this is their decision, not mine. So when I talk to them and when I communicate with them, I'm communicating as if they're going to make their own decision. I'm not, yeah, I tried that. It didn't work for me. Maybe it'll work for you, but it didn't work for me. So that's changed to the point where I fear for their well-being.
And if it's what they've been raised in, I mean, and that's their environment, that's their culture. They don't know anything else except the intertwining of this gamification of social media, and social media is just infused with ads. It's this cycle. How do you get out of it?
Yeah. Okay. So here, I hear you. I'm the professor standing in front of that alumni who screwed up back when and not doing his taxes properly and lost his and moved in with his parents. I'm the professor that taught him finance. So I'm not his parent, but I was involved in the process of what I thought they should learn that failed to include this knowledge.
Right.
So when you go off like that, and I hear you, and I agree with you that this is social media and the phones, and like I just can't get their nose out of the phones and blah blah. By the way, you couldn't get me out of a comic book at the time either, so I was just as bad in terms of the behavior habits. But the question is then, who was asleep at the switch?
I agree. I definitely think it was the society they were raised in, not to their own fault.
One last question for you.
Sure, sure.
We ran into one of your students 5 years from now. What is the one thing that you want them to remember that they took away from your course?
So there's one of the early chapters is about measuring wealth and scoreboarding. You know what the scoreboard, what does the scoreboard look like? And they like that analogy. But in there, the concept that I introduce is entitlement. And entitlement is when you've reached a point where you're able to move into debt and out of debt repeatedly. Typically, the banks will loan you more money the next time you come back if you paid it down effectively and well when you borrowed this much. When you come back the next time, they say, yeah, you are a very good client. We'll loan you twice as much. And we'll even give you a better rate on the money that you're borrowing because we like you as a client because you helped us make money loaning money. That's our business. So there's a point where you don't go into debt and just never come out, hopefully. And you don't go into debt and come out and then never go back into debt again. The rich borrow. Everybody borrows. I borrow. I mean, like, it's like uh, but a home debt is different than a revolving credit card debt. So buying a house or a car is debt of one type, and then a student loan that you've kept for 50 years and a revolving credit balance that's always twice what your weekly pay is. I mean, these are there's a difference. And the difference leads to a successful moment, going back to the metric and the scoreboard, of when you feel you've arrived and you are entitled. Because you've now figured out how you can manage your money in a stable way and step into debt and out of debt. And that effectively allows you to reduce your focus on the cost of things and allows you to consider the quality of the thing that you're acquiring. That's a sense of entitlement. You'll know it when you'll feel it when you hit that point. And everybody of age nods up and down and says, yeah, I remember exactly when that happened. And that sense of entitlement allows you to approach the borrowing process in a much different way. You feel entitled that I pay my debts. I'm entitled to that respect and that sense of accomplishment. I hope that they hold on to that thought, because I think that is the guiding thought on how to think in a capitalistic society about the greed and avarice that goes along with how you want to live, that's something that we should aspire to. You just have to recognize that there are decisions that you have to make along the way to not do the stupid things. Right?
Is there anything that you really want to hit home before we wrap it up?
There is a concern in academia for using AI and for cheating on tests. And this is 100%, I teach this as a 100% online course. If I have 3 students, now I don't actually encourage this, but I certainly look the other way actively, is that if I have 3 students who sign up as buddies to take the course together and they go and they take the test all together in their dorm room, I'm okay with that. I don't actually go and look to see if they all answered the question the same way and therefore they all took it at the same time. So therefore, oh my gracious, they're cheating. They're not cheating. And so I view that as there's a random set of collection of questions, of pools that come up. So they didn't get the same test. And all 3 of them had to sit through that material, which was a larger than if they went through it once. And some of it was repetitive, all even better. They learn better. They hold on to the material better. So I'm not, this. I wouldn't encourage somebody to pay somebody $100 to take the test for them. That would be bad. However, if they took it as a group and worked through the problems together, that is such a great learning experience. So I wanted to share that as a thought, that this is not the type of driver's ed is a team effort. If you need to practice parking and a couple of your buddies help you practice parking and you help them practice parking, okay, this is about getting a little bit more proficiency and you do it repetitively and la 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 la. So it's like this is focus on the takeaway, not the quiz event, the metric that we need to post a grade, because that's our responsibility as teachers to grade the proficiency level of the student. We're going to make it as attractive for them to repeatedly come to this material as possible. That's what I want. But it does make
Thank you for that perspective. Because we hear it from both sides, people who are very much aligned with your school of thought and others who are very, very concerned.
If this was a major and they had to show some proficiency, that they're going to go off and get a job, and it reflects on it devalues the certificate, the major program, the degree, if they turn out to be an empty suit and an idiot when they get out there, and companies don't hire from that school anymore because all the majors who Riley taught are just idiots, so it's like, okay, I got that, but that's not what this is about. This is about competency in living and just surviving, their survivability. And so the more they talk about it to each other, the better.
Thanks for tuning in to Can I Get a Retake, a podcast by Great River Learning. If you liked the episode, show your support by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. For detailed show notes and transcripts, visit greatriverlearning.com. Can I Get a Retake is brought to you by hosts Michelle Manaman and Deanna Plussel. Our show is produced and edited by Michaela Albee and Maggie Christensen. Artwork for the podcast is crafted by Michelle Manaman. Our intro music is courtesy of Comma Media. We'll be back soon with another captivating chat with a top GRL educator.